Oh, there we go. We are ready and rolling. Okay, we're back. It's a Thursday and we're here for Think and Link, and you've shown up hopefully to be entertained and informed and educated and inspired by our two guests. Myself and Kitty Hart from Heroic Productions will be facilitating the conversation. It'll be about an hour, but it'll go by really fast, more than likely. I was asked before we started this, Kitty mentioned the idea of, have you ever talked about why we put these pairings together? And I talked to the speakers about that when I talk about the magic is in the pairing, but I've never really talked to the audience about that. And sometimes our pairings are absolutely amazing. Actually, most times they're absolutely amazing, I should say. And I'm sure this one is definitely going to be. But for some reason, this month, we have had all related to retail and immersive experiences. That has been a very common theme we noticed, and it was not planned. So basically what I'm saying is it's pretty intuitive, right? It's two interesting people that we put together and have a conversation, and there's something intuitive, but there's also something that seems very logical. So, and this event, I should say, is put on by Capsule. We are a special projects firm here in Minneapolis, doing work across a lot of different categories for brands like Patagonia, Arc'teryx, Curaleaf, Hydro Flask, and a variety of others. So I am going to hand it over to our guests to introduce themselves, to give their most amazing and flamboyant background story. And then we're going to go into a series of questions and talk about retail, immersive experiences, and all kinds of other things. So, Erin, do you want to start it off?
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I'm Erin Levzow. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Museum of Ice Cream, and we are through the globe. We have 5 locations currently and growing. We are part of the parent company Figure 8, which is an experiential immersive museum company. I am recent in my position, live in Wisconsin, and spent 10 years in Vegas working in casinos, moved to Dallas for Wingstop, Freebirds in Austin, Hathaway, Bounteous, the MarTech agency, up to Milwaukee for Marcus Hotels and Resorts. And then most recently, I just left Jack in the Box and Del Taco to join the Museum of Ice Cream, and excited to be here with all of you today.
All the way to this moment. Perfect. Anne, give us your background.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anne Mezzenga. I'm one of the co-founders of Omni-Talk Retail. We are a retail media platform that focuses on the future of the retail industry, the people, the technology, and the companies that play into that story and where things are going. Prior to Omni-Talk, was an executive at Target, working on Target Store, the future concept, with my co-founder, Chris Walton. He and I built that team and spent 2 years dreaming about and exploring and researching how you take some of this cool technology and scale it in an enterprise organization. And so that kind of led into our work at Omni-Talk, and we love doing what we do. We do store tours. We do a weekly podcast called The Fast Five. There's lots of places to stay on top of what we're doing, but we like to think we make following the retail industry a little bit more fun.
I agree. Yes, you do. Kitty, I think it would be good for you to give a little bit of background on you so our audience knows.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Kitty Hart. I've co-hosted with Erin several times, so many of you may know me. For those of you who don't, I'm at Heroic Productions. We are an in-person, virtual, and hybrid event production company serving primarily the corporate audiences. So definitely right in the middle of experiential marketing and all of the creative energy around creating immersive experiences. And, Erin, to your point, when you were kicking us off here, pointing out that many of the speakers over the last month or so have been very focused on retail. The retail industry is all abuzz. We're all so curious about it. There's been so much change in it, and there continues to be so much change that I think we're all just intrigued by it. So I think this is going to be a really great pairing and a really great conversation today.
Mm-hmm. Love this. All right. Should we start off with a question for Erin? I went deep on your background. I know Anne more than I know you, Erin. So I kind of stalked you on the internet, listened to almost all the podcasts you've ever been interviewed for. And you could probably tell that in the questions I sent you ahead of time because we were very intrigued. But I do want to get the backstory on the Museum of Ice Cream, a little bit on the founder story, and then the fact that immersive experiences are playing a bigger role. And we had Joe Pine and Frank Rose last month, so that was part of this as well. But what is the design intent behind the museum? And if you give us a little bit of background on the museum, because not everyone knows it, but it is really intriguing.
Yeah, so we're the only and one of the first ever to create a concept to bring people together, to unite and inspire through imagination and connection. We do that through the love of ice cream. Everyone loves ice cream. And we have locations in Chicago, New York City, Austin, Texas, Shanghai, Singapore, and many more coming. So what we do is really get people out of their comfort zone to connect with each other, again, through the shared love of ice cream. Do people take pictures in our museums? Absolutely, they do. And they're beautiful. And we're the #1 most TikToked museum in the world, which is unbelievable, with 72 million hashtags last year. But what we're really about is that connection, that joy, and finding the inner child in you. So this love of playing, if you get to play, then you won, right? And we all need that as adults and as kids. And how many times have we looked at our own kids and gone, man, I wish my life was like that again, right? So being able to come in and really have a sense of play to escape the world that you left behind and just have fun. And by the way, you get unlimited ice cream when you go through our museum as well. So we are very much focused on the immersive experience. And the design intent, each room, we have 14 different installations. Each room is different, right? We have bananas that hang down from the ceiling, which are split in half, which is an ode to the banana split. We have in every single museum a sprinkle pool. So it's a pool, legitimately a pool filled with sprinkles that you can jump in and dive into and have fun in. And again, there's no place like being a kid than when you're jumping in a pool of sprinkles. And then, and this concept was started over 6 years ago. Obviously the pandemic, like anything, right, made it a pause, but now we're back in growth mode and very excited about it.
That's wonderful. A sprinkle pool. The things that kids grow up with that I didn't get when I was that age, I'll just say. And I sound really old when I say that, but yeah, a sprinkle pool.
It's a dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what an amazing immersive experience. So Anne, I want to pose a question to you. As you're always right at the center of what's happening in retail. And we know that retail has definitely become more and more immersive over the past decade, but we continue to hear that it needs to be even more immersive, right? We never stop hearing that. You've just come from NRF, right? National Retail Federation just took place in New York City in January. What's the buzz there? Tell us a little bit about the future of retail and this constant narrative around that it needs to be even more and more immersive.
Yeah, it's a lot less sexy than a sprinkle pool. So I'm just going to start by saying that Erin's just won the whole webinar, I think. What we've been hearing a lot from NRF and just from other retailers and brands that we've talked to since then at other shows as well. I think the definition of things like immersive and experiential have changed a lot during the pandemic. It used to be like pre-pandemic that an immersive retail experience, an experiential retail experience was going to a store, taking photos, a lot of the things that Erin is talking about that are still great for like people missed and they wanted to get back to today. But I think there's also this backbone like of the foundational elements that really make it so that your experience online and your experience offline should be consistent across the board. So for example, like when I'm shopping at a retailer online and I see something, I put it in my cart, I'm maybe not ready to buy it right then, but then I'm going into the store. most of the time we still have to start that experience all over again. I mean, people aren't coming up to us, even some of the best retailers, you can say, you're a loyalty member, you've got that all up at hand, and you're having to fill out your profiles again when you're going in. Like that kind of experience, a lot of retailers are working to fix so that they have one single 360-degree view of you as a customer. And the way that they're able to do that is really, this death of the cookie, and really being able to develop loyalty programs, develop ways to get your information. It's better for the retailer because they can then personalize your experience even more. But then as a customer, I'm not going in and having the hassle or the hurdle of trying to tell you who I am again, what I like, what I've purchased previously. And so we're seeing a lot of investment from retailers in the less sexy, like experiential, pop-up Instagram kind of photo situations in the store, and more about like, how do I just make this experience much more simple and much more convenient for you? So I would say that's like a big tell coming out of NRF. And secondly, it would be a focus on how those investments in the technology that you're investing in can quickly pay off. Where's the return on investment for the things that you maybe tested during the pandemic? Now it's time that retailers are really looking at, how do we generate new sources of revenue? Where else can I improve the efficiency of my processes? And how do I really improve the lives of my my sales team or my stores teams and my online teams to make the customer experience better? So kind of a two big themes coming out of NRF this year.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, definitely an improvement in the relationship. And during the pandemic, there's definitely been a strain in that relationship between retailers and consumers, right? And how we had to, stand 6 feet apart on little pads to wait until we could step into line. That stuff was just awkward to no end. And then the plexis that still are there. There's still plexis out there, right?
Yeah.
It's just, and I can see the need to just do the basics and get beyond, get to that level, which is good to hear that was part of the conversation at NRF. So back to Erin and this really crazy immersive experience about ice cream, which I'm surprised that the Museum of Mathematics doesn't get more Instagram or TikTok attention, but I don't know. It's one of those things, just for me, I guess. Anyway, serious loneliness has been reported, especially amongst young adults, as a almost an epidemic. During the pandemic, after the pandemic, there's a lot of this, as Kitty once said, we're alone together with our devices. We've talked about this, and I think this is phenomenal, but tell me about the Museum of Ice Cream and what it's doing around loneliness and helping people connect.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're exactly right. And that's why we find that our business really does bring people together, and that focus on connection, whether it's connection with loved ones that you're coming with or connection with other people. We've in fact celebrated National Unplug Day. One year we had everybody turn in their cell phones, and you could go through the museum without a cell phone, which if you've ever asked someone to hand you their cell phone just to borrow it, there's like pure panic in someone's heart, let alone turn it in at a desk and then go through the museum without touching it. Like, it's in our natural, it's like, I can't help it. I just pick up my phone and I don't realize it. And what that does is it creates this sense of calm that you're like, oh, I don't need to check anything. I'm not getting pinged 300 times. And then you look up, and it sounds so simple, but you look up and you see the people around you, and you see what you can play on or play with. And in our New York location, there's a 3-story slide. And I personally, when I went through the museum, I walked past the slide. I was like, I'll take the elevator, right? As an adult. And they were like, no, you're going to take the slide. I was like, no, I'm not. And they're like, no, take the slide. And first of all, a tiny tube slide, kind of stresses me out. But I was like, no, I'm really not. And the guy, our guide there, he goes, what's your name? And I said, my name. And he goes, where are you from? And I said, where I was from. And he's like, oh my goodness. And he immediately put me at ease and connected with me as the employee to me. And then when I got on that slide, it was like I transcended and went straight down that slide and came out as a small child. I was giggling. And so really taking a moment and doing that is just unbelievable. So that's why when I said, yes, people can take photos in our museum. Of course they can. They love sharing it. They're giant hot pink buildings, right? Millennial pink, 1905C. When you go past our buildings, yes. Do you want to take a picture? Absolutely. Yes. But do we want people to celebrate being together in that connection? 100%. And we want people to feel like a child. And when you're a kid, you play with anyone. Like someone comes on the playground and you're like, sure, I'd love to play tag with you. Why not feel that way when you get to have an experience together, or an adventure, and just play and eat ice cream?
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Yes.
So I would guess that there are people who go there thinking that they're going to go through this experience and they're going to learn about the history of ice cream, when they really don't realize that what they're walking into and they're now having is an experience, and whoever they're with, they're having this amazing experience with them. It's like they don't even know what they've just walked into and how they're going to come out the other side. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So we do have people who come to us and they're like thinking they're going to go through a traditional museum. We do have Museum of Modern Ice Cream in our locations where you will learn about the history. Like, for instance, did you know the original ice cream scoop was actually invented by an African-American gentleman many, many ages ago? It kind of looks like a giant cone cup. And I just like, it always fascinates me that someone was like, you know what, I really want to scoop this and this spoon isn't working. What are we going to use, right? How are we going to solve this? And where it's come today with ice cream scoops. It's absolutely fascinating. And then how the different ice cream flavors came to life and where they came from, and what ice cream is actually popular in different places is just really fascinating to learn about. But that's only one piece of the whole experience, which is you get to come into the world of ice cream. You get to live and breathe it with us and have fun. And then when you leave, you go about your day, but we hopefully have created lasting memories for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not about technology at all, that experience. It's about in the physical moment. And yet what we tend to talk about a lot within the topic of retail is technology, all of the investments in technology. How do we make these investments pay off? So I'm sitting here looking at my next question for you and wanting to tie these two things together, because Erin's, what we're talking about with Erin and the Museum of Ice Cream is all it's a physical experience and getting us to shed the technology. My question for you, Anne, tends to be all about technology, all of the significant investments in technology that retailers are having to make over the past few years. You just having come from the conference. So what do we learn from Museum of Ice Cream? How do we apply this to the world that you live in and all of the brands that you're talking to on your podcast day after day after day?
Yeah, I think actually one thing that you just reminded me of, Kitty, was we interviewed the chief technology officer at Sam's Club, Vinod Bitterkopa, and he said something when we interviewed him not too long ago, that great omni-channel experiences, or the best omni-channel experiences, are those that you don't realize are there. Like, you shouldn't be able, you shouldn't have a device or a kiosk or whatever. It should just be happening in the background and result in a better experience for you. And I think, what Erin's talking about, that is like dream state for most mass retailers, right? Like, they want to have Museum of Ice Cream, sprinkle pools, like all of these things. But for some of them, like it's not something that is attainable for them. Like they won't be able to pull it off in the scale that Museum of Ice Cream can. And so I think you're looking at investments that retailers are making in technology that can still provide some sort of experience or memory of, the people that you're with and the shopping experiences that you have, but it's not like it won't be quite to that level. And one thing that I'm kind of reminded of is the Target expanding their Starbucks curbside pickup service. So for those who aren't familiar, in 250 stores in the US right now, you can place a curbside pickup order with Target. And then when you get the notification that your order is ready, when you tell them that you're on your way, you're able to order anything from the Starbucks menu: food, beverages, what have you. And when you pull up to Target and you let them know that you've arrived, they bring out whatever you ordered and your Starbucks order. And when we were at NRF, Rick Gomez, the head of food and beverage at Target, was talking about how the number 2 thing that's been ordered from the Starbucks delivery is cake pops, which tells me a story that those experiences that many retailers are longing to create to, achieve museum of standard experiences, like they might be happening in the car. They might be happening because your child is with you. You're going to go treat yourself and your kid, and you have this memory of now we picked up our curbside order, but now we have time to do whatever we want. Like now we get to go to the park, or now we get to go, to the museum, or we can do some sort of thing together to really have those memories, give people their time back. But I think it's really important for people to realize that retailers are trying to implement technology for the most part. The good ones are that you don't realize or see. It just makes your overall experience really frictionless. And so I think that's where we're starting to see a lot of investment in to still create that delight and that memory, but it might not quite be to the scale of where Erin's at yet, but we can sure hope someday maybe.
What an interesting behavior that I'm guessing that was a surprise. The cake pops being a quick add-on. I swear every time I'm in a Starbucks and I'm sitting there looking at that case and I see those 2 little cake pops sitting over there, I always think, oh, those look really good. But those also look like they've been sitting there for a week, because who's actually buying those? I don't know. But I'd like to know what the sales are now.
Yes, lots of people with young children trying to pacify them in cars, for sure. For sure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Can I throw another question to Erin? Erin?
Yep. Go for it.
So as Erin Keller said, we went deep on our research on you and found an interesting quote. In a past life, you said, "I'm selling tacos on the internet."
Yes, I did say that.
What did you mean by that?
So when I worked at Del Taco, my job was vice president of marketing technology. And so when people would ask me, they'd be like, "What do you do?" First of all, even now to this day, like when people ask me what I do, I'm like, I work in marketing. Like anybody who cares what my title is, like usually wants to tell me something, to be honest. But at Del Taco, they're like, "So like, what do you do?" And trying to explain to people, like, I change foundational systems and I put together, MarTech strategies, like people don't understand. So one day I sat there and I said, I sell tacos on the internet. That's what I do. And it's true. Like that, when you break it down to the simplistic base of it, if it touched a computer or mobile device, it came through our department and we sold tacos. Like our job is fun. Like we had a fun job. And I thought that was the most fun, selling tacos. And then that all was quickly overshadowed by ice cream and sprinkle pools are way more fun. So, but I sold tacos on the internet.
Love that. Yeah. When we went, and we are not, I don't know that we can get into this as much, but how you got to where you are now and your very scrappy, fascinating career, and the fact that you're doing what you're doing now is just that is, you have a novel in your future. You have something to write down. It's really cool, really fascinating for sure. So back to Anne and retailing in all the ways. And I totally agree that like as consumers going into retail and omni-channel, they don't think about omni-channel. They think about just where it is and how do I access and how is it most efficient, and time and money and all those just basic things for them. But there are so many different ways to buy things nowadays. It's just, we've got, and retail is supporting e-com, they're supporting, ordering from your car or your home and going to pick it up, whatever it is, BOPIS, that's a really awkward acronym, but right. And then in the traditional retail, and it feels like there's 10 other ones out there for some reason. I don't know how they're doing it, especially some of the big ones, right? How are they handling all these ways and the infrastructure and the logistics and everything that comes with it? I'm curious if you heard anything at NRF about that, if there was, I know the technology investment, but anything else about that that's interesting?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of evaluation happening right now. We just covered a story this morning about Heinen's, a grocery store that's based out of or has stores in Ohio and Chicago areas. They've cut Instacart out. They've said, we don't need you anymore, Instacart. Take a hike. We're going to try to do fulfillment on our own. And I think that we're seeing a lot more of that happen. We interviewed Wesley Rhodes. He's one of the heads of technology for Kroger. And he was talking about, we tested all these things during the pandemic. Like, we were going to test everything and anything. It was just about getting the consumer what they needed from us over our competitors as quickly and efficiently as we could. Expense was not really an issue. It was like, we need to sell tacos, like Erin's saying, like we got to figure out a way to get this food out the door. And I think now companies are looking internally, like, what should we build internally? What should we invest in? What external partners do we need to create the best experiences for our guests, whether that's, curbside pickup, whether that's, delivery in 15 minutes or, delivery later this week, whether that's, facilitating a better in-store experience, wayfinding in the store to help people pick their own groceries and then do self-checkout when they're leaving. Like, there's all of these elements that I think retailers put a lot of time and focus in over the pandemic. And now they're trying to figure out, like, how do I make this ecosystem for my guests that makes the most sense for them? It's not going to be all the things. You see a lot of other retailers cutting back on delivery on certain BOPUS initiatives because they can't do it effectively. And so I think that we're going to start to see a lot more investment in this ecosystem that is kind of the key differentiator or the secret sauce, as Wesley Rhodes told us from Kroger, of how my experience in store and online can be that much better or one step ahead of the offering that my competitors offering their customers. And so I think we'll continue to see kind of building this unique framework so that they can offer customers the best omni-channel experience.
Yeah. So a reconfiguration of it and perhaps some consolidation of actual channels or
and a long-term solution. Like, like I said, like, there was lots of things that had to happen during the pandemic, but times are tight. People have to cut costs. There's a lot of companies that have to cut back on resources and store on their tech teams. We're even hearing of, like, Walmart just consolidated a bunch of their tech hubs. Like, people are trying to figure out how to do more with less right now. And it's going to result in probably fewer options than a customer might have been used to during the pandemic.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Mm-hmm. We should mention too that with our live audience, if you've got questions, drop those questions in chat. It looks like, Anne, you can see chat, right? Erin, can you see the chat? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody has comments or questions, drop those in there, and we can try to get to some of those questions as well. So again, Erin, in some of our research, as we prepared for today, we learned that you have some theater in your background. How have you applied your theater studies to your career? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, my degree is in acting and directing, which is super useful. And I did start in theater when I started working. Once I fell into internet marketing at the time, I realized I had a skill for it. And a lot of what I do now as a marketer is a storyteller, right? But theater in itself, I think, has taught me a lot about being a great leader. And it also has provided me all the tools I needed to be successful no matter what career I would have chosen. And a couple of those things are, like, it allows you to lean in, right? The first rule of improv is to say yes and to build on something. And as a marketer or as a leader, this idea of, like, there are no bad ideas. Throw something out and it's going to get us to an even better idea. And so, like, let's build on it. So, like, yes, I can do that. And we're going to even make it better, and that continuous improvement. It also allows you to take rejection really well, right? Like, there are many roles I didn't get because I was too fat, too skinny, too tall, too short. didn't sound right, whatever. And so you're able to go, okay, cool. You don't like me. Let me go find someone who does like me. And so being able to have that resilience in my career, being able to take coaching and feedback, as well as provide coaching and feedback at a director level. It just really teaches a lot about that, as well as creating that story, telling the story. What you want in any type of story you tell is some sort of arc, right? Whether it starts high, ends low, starts with a big climax in it, whatever it might feel, but how best to bring that story to life and the emotional connection you need to have as a marketer. So I do think theater has taught me so much, not just for my job as a marketer, but also as a leader, and how to continue kind of surviving and thriving as the world changes around me.
Mm-hmm. It's such a valuable life skill, for sure.
Yeah.
Kitty's a huge fan of the whole theater background.
I am.
We're all on a stage. Just
as the daughter of, as my light has just changed here in my, so I'm going to stand up and I'm going to adjust my thing. But yes, the daughter of a drama teacher. So you and I have a lot in common.
Awesome.
All right. Erin, take it away. I'm going to change my light.
All right. Okay. So Anne, I've been to NRF a number of times in the past, didn't get to go this year. So a lot of my stuff for you is just curiosity about that, because it's for the rest of the world, you get to see at NRF what the future of retail, you get to see some of that stuff. And your background doing that at Target, so incredibly intriguing, being able to see what's coming, right? Spending a day looking at these new technologies. When I was there, and this is 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, they were printing food in front of me. Like, right? Like, what? I don't know if I want to eat that, but that's the kind of stuff you're seeing there. And one of the things I saw that got me like deep on this idea of dynamic pricing, and just a little bit of background on how I was thinking about that at the time. It was, if you imagine influencers going shopping, right? And so let's put something out there like a Kate Ahrens of Wit and Delight, right? Significant influencer, right? Anything she buys, it should be on discount because she's an influencer, right? I am not. So I go up to the shelf and eggs are $6. She goes up to the shelf and they're 50 cents, right? I'm like, hey, at the same shelf, because we're getting to that place where dynamic pricing at the shelf. So is there anything you saw in that, or advancements around that were interesting, or conversations around shelf labels, digital shelf labels, things like that?
Yes. Erin, that sounds awesome. I haven't seen them changing it depending on the person that you are, but we are seeing cameras being installed in electronic shelf labels that are doing other things like, looking at the aisle across from you and seeing, if the planogram is set correctly, what out of stocks might be missing. So it could be something that happens in the future, but we did spend a lot of time with a company called SCS and Magotag. They had a pretty large showing at NRF. And I think the idea there kind of continues on what we were talking about before, like good and great omni-channel experiences should be unnoticeable to you. And what I mean by that, and the beauty of electronic shelf labels and dynamic pricing, is that if I saw something on my phone when I was building my list for Walmart or the grocery store, and I get to the store and it's, $6 instead of $2 that I saw on my phone, like those prices should be the same. There's a lot of, if we get really deep into the weeds, there's a lot here with like the CPG companies and what their, pricing structure is, how, like whether or not the discounts or deals got applied, that were supposed to, the little hang tags on the shelves got changed. Like all of that stuff involves resources and time that a lot of the retailers don't have. And as the cost for these electronic shelf labels, which you can see in like some of Amazon stores, most of Amazon stores are using them, but you'll start to see them, I think, in more stores around, especially like grocery and mass retail stores around the US, increasingly over the course of the next few years, because the cost is going down. And now that electronic shelf label, which was once just, showing prices, like back in my Target days, it was like e-magnet like it would show digital pricing. You could change them once a day. Now it's like they're all connected. They're all live shelves. They can change, they can display ads on them. You know, again, they have the cameras, but ultimately they are doing pricing changes system wide. So like every store in your entire enterprise can be changed, you know, dynamically in real time. And that was nothing that was possible before. So I think we're going to continue to see an investment in this, especially like that and other technologies that you can really start to build upon. Like it was once too expensive. Now electronic shelf labels allow dynamic pricing. They allow a cut in hours that staff had to manually change those prices if they were being changed at all. And you have out of stock, you have planogram compliance, like all these things you can do with one tiny label now that you couldn't do before. And we're seeing a lot of technology like that. That's like, we built the road, put cars on it. How many cars can we get on it now that we've built this infrastructure? So really exciting to see.
Yeah.
Whenever
Cool.
whenever I see those little things at, we'll say Kohl's, I always look at them and I think, okay, I understand the functionality here and it's great, but I am always wanting something more from a design aesthetic.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it would be fascinating to throw this question to somebody like Mauro Porcini, who just thinks of everything through a design lens. So it will be interesting now to see, now that the technology is there and it's working and continuing to evolve, how will it now design from an aesthetic standpoint so that it actually contributes at the shelf from that perspective?
Yes.
As well.
Yeah. I mean, that's something, I think that's definitely an area of focus now, Kitty. Like we were seeing, you know, how all of the labels on the shelves can like turn into a visual display. There's a lot more happening, I think, because it does get very cold and technological. It's not, there's still some design and some fun and some inspiration that will come of it. So I would say stay tuned. I think that'll be coming for sure.
Awesome. I look forward to it. So that's a topic where, you know, some people would look at that, you know, this little part of this conversation and say, you know, not everything has to be designed, you know, needs to be aesthetic at the shelf. I would push back on that and say, yes, it does. And so this gets to working with people. Erin, I'm going to throw this question to you. Working with people who don't say no. You know, it's I think you've said in the past that you're attracted to people who don't say no to new ideas, and seem to move toward opportunities where you get to have fun at work, right? I mean, don't we all want to do that? We all want to work with people who don't say no and say, you know, let's explore that. Let's see what the possibilities are. Tell us more about your time at Del Taco in particular and your approach to creativity.
So I think the best creative and creativity comes out of having parameters to work within or to break, right? Rules can be broken, but you need to have rules to start, and that's where you can get real creative. And so if you set clear expectations, then the ability to, and what your goals are and what you want to achieve, then creativity can flow. It's when there's no clear roadmap as to what we're setting out to try and achieve that I see creativity start to get hindered. At Del Taco, one of the things was to reimagine, like, and doesn't sound sexy, but to reimagine the MarTech stack, right? And what that looks like. And we had to get creative in how things interacted. And another part of it was launching Del Yeah's only rewards system they've ever had, which was Del Yeah Rewards. And it was a loyalty base, but it wasn't your typical loyalty program. It was points based with tiers, with the idea of really driving that one-to-one relationship with the consumer and increasing the average spend of the consumer, right? Many brands would come to me and say, well, everybody needs a loyalty program. No, they don't. No, they don't. I don't believe that they do. But I do believe that if you set out to reward your customers and recognize them, you can do really great things. And we got really creative in how we would do that for our customers. But it allows that creativity to come to life. So, and when I say I don't like working with people who say no, what I do is a lot of times Ted Lasso says, he quotes Walt Whitman. If you like Ted Lasso, big Ted Lasso fan.
Yes.
He quotes Walt Whitman when he's throwing darts in one of the episodes. And he goes, I read a quote by Walt Whitman, be curious, not judgmental. And what that means is to ask questions. Don't make a judgment. Don't decide that you've already know everything about a person or how they're attacking a situation until you can ask questions. And so a lot of times when I say, I don't want to hear no, it's more about, did we ask the right questions to understand where that person was coming from and to put myself in their shoes and then be able to pull that creativity through, right? Because a lot of times people have really great ideas. They may just not be able to articulate them. And so that's my job, is to help the team work the best they can and pull all those ideas out and understand them without passing a judgment based on history or based on something that I may have read in the situation. And then of course, we should have fun. We spend more time at work than we do anywhere else. I spend more time with these people. I better damn well like the people I work with, right? I don't have to like be in love with you, but I should like you enough to want to have a very healthy working relationship where we can build really cool stuff together.
That's cool. Yeah, the Ted Lasso has not come up yet on the show, which is surprising. We have all the ones we've done and how much I love. He's like the therapist of soccer or of sports, right? He just has such a inquisitive mind, and you're right, not judging at all, just asking questions, curiosity, right, around that. And then your point on loyalty, and not everybody needs a loyalty program. Sometimes loyalty is baked into what you're doing, right? And that people are going to naturally be loyal to something. But and then the swearing without swearing with the loyalty program. We Kitty knows this story, but we had launched a line of socks that were made from cornstarch, and we called them Shucking Awesome socks. And I could tell you that little line went around that trade show like wildfires. And people, you are shucking awesome, all over. People love swearing without swearing, so that's a cool one. And using the name nicely. Well done. Very cool.
We do have some questions coming into the chat. Todd had asked a question about AI, and Anne has dropped some comments in there. Actually, Anne, my next question to you was going to be focused on, what else is really exciting that's happening in retail. Maybe you want to touch on that just a little bit, on AI. People are quite intrigued with that.
Yes. Again, I feel like my topics are just not cool. Erin, you have the best, we have to talk to Erin more, because mine are just well, you just got to go back to basics, people. You got to focus on what, yes, AI is being used, but it's not being used as we are seeing, I should say, I did put in the chat, we are seeing more retailers start to explore AI and generative AI like ChatGPT as a means to kind of gather some of that information early on about consumers without having to rely on human resources to do so. So they can create those better omni-channel experiences. But most of the work with AI and computer vision right now is how do I, as quickly as possible, identify, scan an entire, take a computer vision camera and scan an entire shelf and know every single product that's there based on how I, what I can see there, what the wrapper looks like, if it's a Christmas Oreo or if it's a regular Oreo, and still know how much that is and what the price should be. That's where the AI is coming in. It's really in these foundational elements, helping retailers get a better handle on what kind of inventory they have in their stores. But it is resulting in some cool things. Then that way, when you place your curbside pickup order with your Starbucks, the thing's going to be in the bag when you order it. All of those things are really important. Supply chain is using AI again to make sure that product is in your store. There's so many use cases of it, but it's really more about where is the investment so that we can make sure that I know where my product is. I can, deliver on my promise to my customers. I am using that to make sure that I'm efficiently, operating my in-store staff, my delivery drivers, that I'm routing things correctly. That's a lot of where that AI and the fun technology is happening. Metaverse, though, I will say that sizzle. has sizzled out
Sizzle's
a bit.
gone.
Yeah. I mean, just like thinking about last year where we were, where that was the major topic. And now I think retailers, like the Chat GPT conversation, it's something you need to consider and you need to be exploring and starting to experiment with, but it's not going to be like this entire, it's going to take some time before we start to actually see it as consumers.
Yeah, I can imagine inside of Target there, like, we just survived a pandemic, we just survived a supply chain massive disruption.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Are you kidding? AI? No, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
That's crazy time. But
the announcements are that they're opening more sortation centers. Like, this is not sexy stuff, but it's going to make the shopping experience better in the long run. Right. So
you did you had one on going into a Target and doing the nail salon thing and get your nails done, which I don't know why that one appeared for me as like one of the more like, oh, that's interesting.
Tell
me about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in store. And I mean, I want to hear from Erin too, because she's like, her partnership with Kendra Scott and like thinking about the right partners or adjacent partners that make sense to bring in, especially when you're Museum of Ice Cream. Like, you have this like amazing brand, and who are the other people that kind of make sense to connect with. And for that example, the Clockwork Robot, like, you look at the target demographic of the Target shopper, and it's, a lot of busy young mothers and parents, but especially moms. And you want to think about like, how many things can I check off my to-do list when I walk into the Target? And so this nail bot in 10 minutes was able to give you a manicure for $10 or less. And there was a subscription program that you could join for even lower cost of manicures. But it's a cool thing that you see Target experimenting with to try to really serve the consumer. Like, let's check something else off her list while she's in the store. But I'm curious, Erin, like, I've just loved the Kendra Scott partnership that you did too. And I'd love to have you like explain the thinking behind like how you decide that was the right partner and just what came of that partnership. Because that's definitely something we're seeing a lot of retailers invest in now, is how do we leverage our base to get more customers and to create better experiences?
Absolutely. So Kendra Scott actually approached us, and again, we are very blessed as the Museum of Ice Cream that like Beyonce, Ryan Reynolds, like all of these celebrities are consistently coming to our location. And we're not, believe me, I didn't call Beyonce and was like, hey, you want to show up? Like, that would be fun. Like, they come because it's a fun and cool experience. So our brand lives beyond us, which is what everybody wants. And Kendra Scott felt that. They happened to have, for our Chicago, Austin, and New York locations, very close in proximity to our museums. And they had approached us before to do take some photography in our locations, and we loved it. And in fact, you'll notice Museum of Ice Cream in the background of their images. But they came and said, February is their Sweet on You campaign, which makes sense, right? Jewelry, Valentine's, totally makes sense. And I'm also a huge fan of Kendra Scott. And they said, what if we built like a Museum of Ice Cream inside of our flagship store on South Congress in Austin? And we were like, oh man, okay, let's look at this. What would this look like? And their brand demo and our brand demo aren't too vastly different. So it really had a nice tie-in and connection. It made sense. It aligned with our campaign for the month of February as well. So we did that. We invited influencers, PR. We really pushed the promotion of us working together. In fact, we had Kendra jewelry in our sprinkle pools, like you were diving for jewelry, which, I mean, if diving in sprinkles isn't fun enough, diving for jewelry really like that ups the bar, right? And then we also, because philanthropy, and we have Museum of Ice Cream Cares as our philanthropy arm, and they have a philanthropy arm. And we said that's really important to our core. Again, a lot of brand tie-ins. What do? Let's go throw some ice cream socials for some schools that need it. Just show up and have a party, a jewelry party, an ice cream party for kids. And that's, I mean, again, we're all about bringing out the child in you. So it was very, again, core to what we were doing. And the partnership just made sense. And so we work with lots of different partners, whether it's Kendra, we worked with Under Armour, obviously ice cream, Dove, Unilever, all of those guys. But we do this because there's a connection there, and it makes sense for us to partner together. And I'll be honest, the Kendra Scott team was phenomenal to work with.
Nice. It's always good to hear that the team behind the brand is good people.
Yeah.
So,
I was just gonna say too, Erin, like it pays off the question that Tim was asking too, of like when you're developing creative briefs, like what matters, you know, when you're putting together these documents, how do they have the greatest impact? And I think like that's one thing that we've certainly been seeing from the marketing folks in retail, in the larger retailers who are trying to find these unexpected or expected partnerships, for that matter, that Erin was talking about, but then using those as opportunities to share customer information between each other, like to get other data about the customers, like, you know, like Erin was saying, like their audiences look very similar, and there's technology that's coming out right now that's focused solely on like, if someone's buying this on Amazon, what else are they likely to buy? And like using that data to form these partnerships that are unexpected but are really fun, and like make that more valuable. And Erin, I don't know if that's consistent with what you guys are thinking.
Spot on. And when you just said it, actually made me think of something. This idea, like we have a building that's already built to play in, right? It's a giant, there's literally a playground on one of the floors of our building in New York, right? And you had started this conversation and saying retailers, you know, that's like their holy grail to really build that immersive experience, but they can't. And so what better thing than to come to us and go, you know what, we can't build it here, but if we partner with you, all of a sudden we can do something really, really cool together. Yes. And that to me is like exactly what they're looking to do. And so instead of putting all the CapEx into building their own immersive experience, they go, how can we do this and go to the experts that do it the best? And that happens to be us.
Wow. Love that. Do either of you want to, and actually this is probably for Anne, this really big, scary, meaty question by Patty around how do you cut through the silos inside of organizations, which it seems like it's a thread that shows up all the time, you know, in any size organization, as a challenge. How do you deliver these cohesive omni-channel experiences?
Well, yeah, I think it's a difficult question. I think it, especially right now, I would say it comes down to how are you able to do the greatest good for the organization? What are the financial focuses of the company? And that's going to drive, I think, where the investments need to be made, and understanding, I think, how the technology that your team is investing in, how that stands to benefit other partners in the organization. It's really hard to do this, if I'm being candid, like if your leadership team doesn't help champion the integration of these different silos and isn't kind of finding reasons for you to get together and to be talking about, like, especially things like AI, if you're going to be making an investment there, things like computer vision. Like we're hearing so often that, you know, some of these partners are coming into a retailer's office, and like the merchandising teams and the not supply chain teams, but the merchandising teams and like the IT teams and the store teams have never been in the same room before until this provider came in and was like, look, here's this technology. We're going to give you this, and you this, and it's all coming at once. Like, it's one investment here. How are you going to work? Like, how would we get you together to kind of talk about what other strategic investments you can make, especially as these technologies become buildable, like the shelf labels, for example, that we were talking about before. So I think hopefully it's like find the common ground and how you can do the best for the business. And for the financial future of the business, because, you know, we all like to say it's about the customer, but I've been in retail for a long time, and it's about the bottom line, and then the best opportunity that you can provide the customer in most cases. So if you can make the business case, I think you'll be more successful going in.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's a wonderful perspective on that. Yeah, and that little like hidden truth that we talk about. It's about the customer. Really? Really?
Right.
Is it? I don't feel that some days. Right. Anyway, and not picking on their hometown retailer at all, because they're great. We love Target. Erin, one more. We do have, I guess, a moment for one more question before we close everything out, if you don't mind. Your scrappy and impressive path to marketing leadership, and how you got to where you are today. Can we get a little bit more on that? Because that, I think, for those that are entering into the marketing field and wondering, you know, you're not a Harvard grad, you're not, you know, you don't have these pedigrees of all kinds of other stuff and these labels and whatnot. For those that want to find their way to marketing leadership, I'd love for you to give a little bit of inspiration around that, just by your story.
Sure. Well, so I grew up in a small town, like 2,000 people, 2 stoplights, and I did, like every other kid in school, like had to figure out what I wanted to do. I decided I wanted to be an actor, went to college at Illinois State. So I grew up in Illinois for acting and directing. And then after college, decided that Chicago was just like too close to home to like be near my parents, and I needed to get away. So I drove my car out to Vegas. I wanted to go to LA, but like turns out I was very poor as well. And in Vegas, I was able to get a apartment for 2 months for $600 because they had found a dead body in it. So I got a deal, and then I bought $100 mattress off of the back of some guy's truck. Yeah. And
everybody hear that? Make sure everybody heard that. Right.
It was very exciting. Like when you're young, that's when, like, anytime a young person talks to me, I was like, this is your chance to like do whatever you want, like risk your life right now. Clearly not strategic decisions on my part. $100 mattress off the back of some guy's truck, didn't buy box springs, didn't know what they were, and slept on the floor until I found a job. Worked at a psychologist's office as an office manager. I got to use her computer to apply for other jobs. She was great. And then got a job as a box office supervisor at Bally's Paris Rio. Worked as a box office supervisor until I took a management course when I went to be the house manager for the theater, which again, passion. And they said at the end of the training and management course for Caesars Corporate, they said I was a natural trainer, which again, like being on stage, and would I want to come join the talent development team? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Also where I met my husband. And then after being in talent development, which I loved, and I thought that's what I was going to do the rest of my life, I got laid off due to the recession. And I started looking, and Caesars, the recruiter, said, what do you want to do? We'll try and help you find a place. And I said, I'll be a housekeeper. I don't really care. Like, I need money. Like, we got to weather this recession. And they said, what do you know about internet marketing? And I had the Facebook. So I felt like I knew everything, right? And so I was hired
as Facebook.
Yeah, well, that's what it was then, right? Like I connected with my professors. It was so cool. Not as cool as MySpace at the time, but like it got better apparently. And so I was like the coordinator. So it was like whale feces, like me, right? Like on the bottom of the totem pole, like dirt. And I clicked the PowerPoint, I got the coffee, but I was also hourly. So anytime they asked me like, do you want to QA 41 properties of emails, or do you want to take on sweepstakes and promotions? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? That sounds great. And get paid overtime. And then got a call from MGM Resorts, went over there, laddered up my career to a manager. And I thought, oh, I love this. Like I'm doing all my ad buying and planning. And I just like, what a great thing. I'm working as an internal agency. Got a call from Palms and Palms Casino, went over there, and then decided I didn't want to raise my kids in Vegas. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but like the first time, like my daughter was like, what's like 69, 69, 69 babes direct to you mean? And I was like, oh, we gotta move. That's what that means. So we decided to leave and got an offer to go lead digital for Wingstop restaurants during growth mode, which was very exciting. Had never been to Texas. Got off the plane and people were really nice. Like people in Texas were super nice. And I was like, oh, I want to live here. People are so nice here. Like, that sounds great. Fast forward to like now, I know my core values are around fun and enjoyment and all those things. So it made sense. Joined Wingstop, loved it, grew with the brand, got the opportunity at Freebirds to go be the CMO over there. moved to Austin. I was also 8.5 months pregnant because like everybody wants to buy a house, sell a house, have a baby, start a new job at the same time. And then did that. And then they eliminated the executive team when they were like going through transitions. I was one of the layoffs. So now twice lost my job at no result of myself. And I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Right? Is this the opportunity to get out of marketing? And I got an opportunity from Hathaway, which is now Bounteous, to go lead their MarTech vertical for reoccurring revenue. So CRM, loyalty, strategy. And I was like, why are you hiring me? Like, I haven't worked on an agency. And they were like, no, but you can build this vertical. Okay. And they took a shot on me and I took a shot on them, and it was great. And I was on the road 100% of the time, which was amazing. And I love traveling, but it turns out when you have 3 small children at home, they don't like when you're on the road 100% of the time. So got an offer to go be the CMO at Marcus Hotels and Resorts up in Wisconsin. My husband's from Wisconsin. I'm from Illinois. It brings us near grandparents, but I never, ever, ever imagined myself living in Wisconsin because it's really cold. So fast forward, we move up to Wisconsin, and we've been there since. When the pandemic hit, hotels shut down. We didn't know what the future held. I was laying off team members every 2 weeks, it seemed like just hold down the fort, like COVID's gonna pass. And that's when I was approached by Tim Hackbart at Del Taco, and he had seen me speak at a conference 5 years earlier, and he had leaned over and said, I would like to hire you someday. And I was like, that's creepy. But he did, and he kept his word, and he called me. And I said, okay, what are we doing? He's like, I need you to rebuild the MarTech stack. And I'm like, okay, let's do that. So that was exciting and fun. Then we were acquired by Jack in the Box, and we handled that M&A. And then I was approached by Museum of Ice Cream. And I had some other opportunities as well during this time. And I was trying to figure out, like, what are my core values? What do I want to do? And I told you, one of them's fun. One of them's excitement. One of them's like spreading joy. And this hit home. And I will tell you a little bit of personal. On October 9th of this last year, my husband had a fall down the stairs at our home. He died 4 times. He was in a paralyzed coma. He had brain surgery. And I literally put everything on hold in my life. And I was like, I can't do anything right now, right? My husband survived. He is doing very, very well. I should probably like cliff note that so you're not like, is he dead? And he survived. He's doing very well. He's been like, they call him a miracle, right? People want to like write a book from our caring bridge because I would update every day with like my dark humor. And now he's wonderful, right? Back at his job of being a stay-at-home dad. He's really good at it. Anywho, when I put everything on hold in my life, Museum of Ice Cream was there every step of the way to be like, I didn't even work there, but they were like, whatever you need. Do you need anything? We're here. We got you. There's ice cream waiting for you if you ever need it. They were so wonderful. And I say that because when a company acts like that, you will do anything for them. And so I didn't even work there. And they were that supportive. So I will tell you that it made it very easy to decide to take this job. I called them and we worked out a start date, and I got my head back in the game, and fast forward, here we are. So my career has lots of ups and downs. I've been unemployed. I've been all over the map, but I will tell you, everything was always heading in the right direction. It just was a messy adventure.
You have lived 100 years. You have lived 100 years in 30, approximately, if I do the math. I that's just amazing to me. And that's more than I knew. Then, wow, that is absolutely
a great story.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Messy adventure. That's a wonderful way to look at it.
Yeah, that was great. Well, unfortunately, we've gone past, not only used the entire hour, but we've gone past our, and so our guests may have signed off already completely. They may all still be there because the dead body thing is still hanging out there. And I'm sure I want to make sure we thank both of you for this wonderful conversation, for your inspiration, and you were amazing, absolutely phenomenal as always. Since I first met you, I've wanted to have you here, and I'm glad this happened finally. And Erin, yeah, that was 100 years in 30. That's very impressive. and Kitty, thank you for co-hosting with me, doing this wonderful event. We have coming up next month in March, We have Meow Wolf paired up with our client at Curaleaf. So we are continuing on the immersive experience. Vince, the founder of Meow Wolf, has agreed to be on the stage, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. And we're going to be hopefully back half in person or in person, kind of. Unless, of course, there's a snowstorm, because every time we do one of these things, there's a snowstorm. So we'll see. Hopefully we're back in person again at the RSP Dreambox building. So that's all I've got. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And thank you
That's
to
great.
our wonderful
Thank you,
audience and
Anne
all
and
the
Erin.
questions.